afternoon, and welcome to Alveo Land's exclusive investment webinar, Building a Business with Real Estate. Thank you for taking the time to join us in this special event. We do invite you to send your questions to our speakers by clicking on the Q&A button found on your screens, and we will be answering them later on in the program. Our guest speaker for today is the President and CEO of Rampver Financials, a dynamic player in financial services, specializing in investments and the biggest distributor of mutual funds in the Philippines. He sits as a director of Ayala Land, Globe Telecom, Ayala Land Logistics, National Reinsurance Corp, Esquire Financing Inc., the Cullinan Group, Techno Marine Philippines, Seven Tall Trees Events Company Inc., and Mobile Group Inc. He has served as the president and CEO of Philam Life, one of the country's most trusted financial services conglomerates, and was chairman of its affiliates and subsidiaries. Prior to this, he was previously Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing and Sales Officer of Ayala Land Inc. He was also chairman of Ayala Land International Sales Inc., president of Ayala Land Sales Inc., and Avida Sales Corporation. He is a registered financial planner and a four-time member of the $1 Million Roundtable. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Rex Mendoza.
Thank you, Shar. Thank you for such a generous introduction. Good afternoon, everyone. It's really an honor and a privilege to have all of you with us. It's that usual Alveo webinar where you're expecting something interesting, really enlightening. And this afternoon will make it more special. On top of analyzing real estate, the environment, the economic fundamentals behind the market, things like that, we shift gears. We are going to be talking about real estate in a more practical sense. Real estate in terms of making it into a business. And that's the reason why I take pride in the special guest that we have today. Let me introduce him properly. He's a true blue Atenean. Graduated from Ateneo de Manila University, Philippines in 1985 with a Bachelor of Science degree in Management Engineering. And his current positions are quite heavy, I guess, in the real estate space. He's chairman of Central Mavens Corporation, president of Smart Mail and City Dorms Corp., a real estate developer and management company, VP of RPM Group of Companies, again, another real estate and management company, a PRC licensed real estate broker, and member of the Pasay Makati Realty Board. All of those companies that I mentioned actually make him control over 800 units to rent out. Can you just imagine, we're all dreaming about getting into the business of real estate, probably renting out a unit or two. This guy is really getting into what we call the big ball game. But the key is to learn things from him, understand what he does, and make sure that we have the building blocks and the road path towards our own successful journey in real estate. But it doesn't end there. He's also the CFO of Pop Tarsus Corp. They're the ones who bring us, if you know, the WOFEX World Food Expo, the Philippine Culinary Cup, the Infrastructure Show, and Hotel Summit and Expo. He's also president of My US Mailbox Corp., an e-commerce import and export company and business center. Our friend has a background in technology. He has been part of the, corporate landscape. He was a marketing consultant for IBM in Tokyo, Japan. Customer technical support for IBM in its headquarters in the USA, White Plains, New York. And a management trainee, again, got involved also in financial services for ING Bank, Amsterdam, the Netherlands in 1985. So quite a huge background. And you know, this person is no other than my very good friend, my go-to mentor for real estate, and my brother in Brother Bo Sanchez Mastermind Group, Mr. Randy Manaloto. Randy?
Good afternoon, Brother Rex. Good morning and good evening to everyone else from the different time zones.
Okay, if you're going to, give Randy, a free rein on what to talk about, we might be here for a whole day. So what I did was to give him a question that somehow will guide us through the journey that I'd want him to share. So he's an entrepreneur and a well-diversified investor. Real estate is obviously his biggest focus and concern. But I know his family, specifically his parents, have been entrenched on property. So I asked him to share that journey with us, how he started in the business, his criteria, how he chose real estate to be his main line. Of course, I'd like to know the secrets of his success, and I feel that's very important for you to know his failures as well. Lastly, how is he coping with the pandemic and how he is pivoting to survive? So, Randy, for this first question, I know you have a prepared presentation. I will go back to my additional questions, but I'm going to be sharing your slides, and let me just share your slides now. I think we need help from our friends in Alveo. I need to be able to share my slides. Ladies, Shar? Okay. Yes, so here we are. So Randy, let me control these slides for you. But this is your presentation on the first question that I had. Quite a long question, quite a mouthful, but I hope you can, usher us into the story of your real estate exploits.
Thank you, Brother Rex. Hello, guys. I'll just make a quick background on what I do, and perhaps maybe answer more questions later on. I'll have to first share you these slides based on the questions of Brother Rex. Brother Rex?
I made those questions, Randy. I actually asked them already. So you can get on with the presentation for up till the
All right.
Yes.
Slide, please. I'll just give you a background of where I came from. For my family business, right after our family business, while I was growing up, we were a family of entrepreneurs. And so when I was still a kid, our small business was about retailing cement. We sell cement. So if you notice, before there was a boom in construction in the mid-70s, and that's how we actually grew the business. My parents grew the business. We were into retailing, and we were into bulk distribution as well. And then the natural progression of that is actually to manage a batching plant or a ready mix plant. This is for automated mixing of cement with gravel and sand and water, so that you can have the concrete that's needed in bulk to be used for building infrastructures like big buildings and roads and bridges. And so that's how the natural iteration of the businesses. And later on, while doing this, of course, we were able to save some funds to buy properties around our areas. I grew up in Mandaluyong, and we used to be surrounded by a lot of swampland, kangkungan ang tawag. And so, but we know that Mandaluyong is one of the centers of trade in the new Metro Manila. And so, my parents started to buy parcels of land around the area, and that's how we started the business of actually building and renting out apartments. So we started with 2 to 4 story apartment units. And that's how we started the business of building and renting out apartments as additional business to our cement business. I'll next go to the next slide, which is actually my background. And this is after college, I actually went abroad to enhance what I learned in school. And of course, I'm into technology and into systems. And so I was able to learn different ways of actually the internet was not there yet. And even so, when I was working with the best company that would enable me to understand the whole business of information technology. And so I am very blessed to be working and trained by IBM, not only here in the Philippines, but around the world. And that enabled me to understand how to integrate technology to our daily lives, including our traditional businesses. But home beckons, and I was encouraged to go back home to help in the business. And one of the expansion of our business actually into aquaculture and agricultural farming in the south, where we raise prawns and we do sugar farming. And so for about 2 to 3 years, I was involved with this. But of course, I use technology. There is a science behind the farming of these kinds of, especially prawns. And so I was able to implement information technology, implement systems, use automated solutions to be efficient in maximizing the revenues based on the parameters and the resources. And from there, when I went back to Manila, I helped out in expanding the business. So since at that time, most of our business is already in real estate, so I learned more about construction, about sourcing of supplies, about importing, and making use of our technologies to make sure that we do it efficiently and quick turnaround. And so from there, I started to do my own small businesses on the side. And that's when I started dabbling on my own real estate ventures. Actually, I just started with one. I bought a beach lot property in the south because I was thinking, of course, I want to have my own resort-centric facility just away from Manila. And I bought land because I was hoping that in the future I would just build a house and later on use it as a halfway house or vacation house or second house. Unfortunately, when I bought that property, it took me 20 years to get my title. And although I have my title now, I still haven't started doing development for that property yet. But that didn't stop me from doing other real estate investments. I also started buying small condos in the Ortigas area, Makati area, and Madulong area, just small ones, things that I can afford because I'm at the time still salaried, and so I try to make sure that I have enough cash flow to cover all of these amortizations. So it started with 1, with 2, with 3, and then I started also dabbling with house and lot properties being developed by different developers around outside of Metro Manila, Laguna, Cavite. And so based on these experiences, it was just an investment as an afterthought of what I want to do with my extra money, because I don't want my money just idle in banks. So I decided to put some in stock, and then some. At the time, I have some little business, and of course on real estate. And then that brings me to that question. Then why did I concentrate on real estate as a business? It's because for me, I noticed that doing all of these small things, small investments, I could see that it really is a wealth builder. Not knowing that when you buy something, especially when it's just small amortization, you can see the appreciation of the property over time. All right. And at that time, when I did my investments, real estate investments, it's mostly just passive, just hoping that, I'll buy one or two here in this building and then have it rented out. And then buy one or two house and lots, and then maybe flip it, make a little bit money. So it's more of just dabbling on real estate, just to also learn the business. Because my exposure to real estate in our family is we develop, we construct, and then we rent out. So it's completely different from the other side, real estate investments. I also see that real estate is a good cash flow source, especially if it's in a good location, and then you can actually, if bought early enough and amortization is very low, your rent can partially cover and sometimes even fully cover. And then, of course, there are other benefits. Later on, we can explain about depreciation as a benefit, because it's actually a non-cash. It's so technical already in accounting and in terms na to, but depreciation is a non-cash expense. And so you can actually benefit from that by having lower tax exposure on your net income. And then, of course, real estate done properly, meaning you acquire the ownership, you hold the title, you can actually borrow against it. All right, and then next slide, please. After all of these years, for more than 40 years of experience, this is the reason why I would conclude that real estate for me, let's just agree to disagree if other people would prefer putting their money in business or putting money in stocks because that's their expertise or that's where the comfort level is. But having been exposed to so many things already, especially on real estate, I would still insist that real estate is for me both not an investment only but as a business. So it's not just passive income but active income. So again, it's the reason, and I think the best reason why I wanted to expand more in real estate is because I have advocacies on this. When we focus on different properties and develop and cater to our target market, we just noticed that when we do this, it enhances the neighborhood. If our neighbors see that there's a new building in their street, they started doing also their own improvements. And so whenever we see development in our properties, we see in the next 3 to 5 years, not necessarily competitors, but people rebuilding their houses into bigger properties or to rentable properties because they see that the whole area has been enhanced already. And so, of course, in addition to that, we create jobs by doing the construction and renting out. And then, of course, because we located our buildings near central business districts, we're able to promote people on either walking or just taking one ride away instead of coming from their own long distant houses where they live, and therefore saving on carbon footprint. And of course, in other properties, we also convert some of these apartments into daily apartment rentals or hotels, and that promotes also tourism because now we become part of the tourism market. We just don't cater to the local ones there, but actually to people from different cities around the country and around the world to be the jumping point before they go elsewhere. And of course, once you have a real property, it promotes self-worth. It validates who you are, the fact that you own something that you can pass on to generations. Next slide, please. And then these are my criteria, very simple. What I'm doing now is one of the 3 or 4 business models that can be done for real estate. There are more than 101 ways to make money on real estate. I'll just share with you what I do. the three business models, and maybe the fourth one as well. And then I'd like to make it simple. So, which means I want the location to be limited. Since I live in Makati and I work in Makati, I prefer that all my properties are also in Makati for easier management. And then the design, I don't want to make it complicated. So whenever people will tell me which unit for what building, I already know how it looks like, because it's very simple design, and we try to be consistent by just having one or two price tiers for our rentals. And thank you, Rex, for actually saying that it's 800 units, but actually these are just small units. They're studios and one-bedroom apartments, not really big condos, but these are properties that we manage both as apartment rental or as hotel units, or even right now we expanded into Soho, small office, home office, work from home office. We do flat pods now, similar to dormitories. And then, in fact, we're even flexible because of the pandemic. We had to use some of our units as storage for other people. In the meantime, while they're working from home, they still need a place for their stuff. So that's the reason why I also like the flexibility in use as a model. So it's just very efficient for us. And then, of course, the reason when we do property development and rent out, it has to have that cash flow potential. I would always consider first the market and the pricing to make sure that I just do my numbers. I have to see my construction, because I see cost of the lot, cost of development as it's like a factory. These are just cost factors. And my products, actually my units that I rent out on a monthly basis. And then, of course, it has to be leverageable, meaning I can borrow against it, and it can be scalable, which I'm doing now. And the lastly is exit strategies. This may mean different things for everyone, but for me, it's a business that I can pass on to the next generation, or it's a business that I can sell in case the next generation is not interested. But there has to be an exit strategy. There's a reason for doing this as a business. And so an exit strategy is also important to consider when you want to expand this as a business. Next slide, please. So this is one of my business models. It's actually apartments for rent. It's in the US they call it the BRRR model, which is actually the buy, renovate. But sometimes I don't renovate; I really rebuild, meaning tear down the old house from tear down the ground and start from scratch, build a new building, which is more efficient. And then once I finish that, I rent it out, and then I go to the bank to refinance it, and then repeat. So that's one of my business models that's working. And then the next one is boutique hotels, apart hotels. Instead of renting it out individually, what we do is we manage it as another business, a hotel business, and it's an additional potential for us because we are located in the fringes of the CBDs that cater to the budget-conscious travelers of the market. And then the next one is we dabbled also into condo sales and rent management. What we do here is we conceptualize a property that we want to build, and then we sell each hotel unit or condo unit initially as a hotel for the whole building, and we manage it for them. And our buyers usually just get their dividends from the proceeds, so they don't have to worry about managing tenants from hell, managing the day-to-day or the month-to-month or the year-to-year obligations, such as paying real estate taxes, paying maintenance dues, all of that. It's the headache is not there anymore. So and the last one would be doing. This is what we're doing now because of the pandemic. We're now expanding into agritourism and countryside resorts. So that's still a work in progress. but we see that there's a potential in that one. And then just to conclude on people would ask, what are those key factors in managing this business? And I would say I would bring it down to just 5 pillars of doing any businesses for that matter. And that's about leadership. So we want to make sure that people understand our culture and the reason why we're building it and how we're doing it. And then, of course, next to that is operations, how we can manage efficiently our operational costs. All right. And then the third one is sales and marketing. We are not known to everyone. And the reason for that is because we cater to a niche market, which is the working transients in CBDs. That's our market for my apartments, and maybe travel hotels, the budget travelers for our hotel businesses. So again, it's making sure that your brand is targeted to the right market, and we build on those brands. And then, of course, very important to us as well is our human resources. So it's not only our employees, but also our shareholders, and then our contractors, and our suppliers. And lastly, of course, is financial. And I think for me, this is more important, especially now during the pandemic. Cash flow is very, very important. We have to make sure that we have enough funds to sustain the operations, even if there's no revenues for at least 6 to 12 months. And so that's very critical to us. And so these 5 pillars for me are the key to making your business a successful one. Next slide, please. Now, people are asking me how I'm pivoting during the pandemic, and when I said that we were brought to so many challenges because of the new normal, we're able to work around it. Residential apartments are still very important during the pandemic because people work from home or stay at home, you know? So it's still home for them, and so we just had to implement certain measures to make sure that everybody, all our tenants, all our guests are protected. And so with this in mind, like for example, social distancing, so we do not allow anymore people coming in, going out, guests who are not tenants of the building. We don't allow them. And then all of these, from video conferencing to work from home, we do our billing automated, use email, we use contactless payment systems. Everything is almost done entirely using technology and using COVID safety measures, just to ensure that spread can be controlled and can be avoided. So next slide, please. That also brought us to human resources reskilling, which is very important. Not only to our employees, but also to our customers, our guests, and our tenants. So we have to make sure that everything is digital if we can. Of course, there are certain challenges that need still the physical aspect of this. For example, maintenance. You really have to send somebody over to repair certain, but we're trying to use procedures like checking temperature, making sure that our maintenance are COVID-free, and we also ask our guests or our tenants to be out of the room while we're doing it, while we're repairing stuff, so that we can observe the strict protocols. And then at the same time, because of this, when we do problem solving in it's not going to be physical anymore. We have to be innovative, especially because you are doing it in an autonomous environment. Like actually, I haven't really gone out too much to visit our properties since the pandemic, but because we have people assigned to these areas, we're able to use technology and to make sure that we can still deliver the expectations based on what we promised. Okay, and of course, we use, I know social and emotional skills are challenging, especially during this pandemic, because we try to encourage our staff and our guests and our to be in a bubble, meaning that to avoid so much exposure to anyone or to everyone, because we don't know where we can get it. And so we just have to emphasize on also on resiliency and to make sure that this won't last long. So next slide. Having said that, we were telling our people that the best way to do this is just to there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and if everybody saw it, it's all about the vaccines, and we're now seeing the effects of effective vaccination programs, especially in the US and in the other countries in Europe. So I think there is a light of the tunnel, and we see. I think we have hopefully reached the bottom of this, and I'm more optimistic more than ever of the potential of growing the business.
Brother Randy, quite a great presentation. No? I guess it's very important for me to somehow put it in perspective that you actually started small. You're not exactly an old man. So if I'm going to surmise, you started it at the time you're already married and up till today. I mean, that's not going to be like over 3 decades, right? So from where you started with 1 unit to where you are today with 800 units, it's almost like, wow. I can just believe that, people can start small and end up becoming big as long as you dream big and start small, right?
Yes, actually started the real business of real estate about 15 years ago when I was really so serious already to do this business as a business, not just as real estate investment. I guess as a real estate investment, I was already happy, just being single and just, have some few passive income and do this and do that. But, when you really get down to it, when you get married and you have to think about the future of your family and your kids and everything, things change. And sometimes the pressure is already there. But sometimes, I guess my personality, when I'm pushed, I deliver better. So I'm complacent. That's my personality. Unfortunately, until I'm pushed to the corner, then that's when I try to make the best out of it.
But I guess it's really important, no, to think about what could be. I guess what you're saying now is the relative difference between someone with 5 to 10 units of condo to someone who already built up an empire of about 800 units to rent out. But let me ask you, I mean, you said, the basically last 15, 20 years. So somehow, aside from today, you've been through other crises in the past, 2008, 1997. How do you differentiate where we are right now to those crises? And what do you think would be the differences in terms of like investing in real estate and making a business out of real estate?
I could remember distinctly after, the 2007 mortgage crisis in the US that affected us somehow. I mean, as a country, not me personally, but as a country. And the 1997 financial crisis, I was still, I just started working when the 1987 Black Friday happened. So I don't remember too much of that. But what I'm saying is that in the 1997 financial crisis, it was a loss of confidence in real estate development. People were speculating left and right. Those were easy money. And I've seen people who borrow against their properties in dollars because they thought that dollars was cheap then in terms of interest rate, not knowing that they got hit not because the interest rate went up only, but because of the depreciation that happened, which doubled their loan obligation in peso terms. And so we avoided that mistake simply because our family is very traditional. The first time our family borrowed money was during the time when I told my parents that I want to buy this property for the family in Legazpi Village. And so we had to borrow money from the bank, and at the time, we got a good deal because it was 1/3 of the property that PNB bought by RJ Jacinto. At the time, that was our peg. He was paying at more than 400,000 per square meter. We got ours for less than 200. So we thought it was a good price. So, and anyway, it's not going to be speculative because we're going to build on it, and the usual business to develop and then rent it out. And so what we're saying is that the 1997 really affected the build and sell. Sorry, not the build and sell, but the sales of properties. A lot of developers got hit. We were not, because we're lucky that we have consistent rentals. That was stable. The residential rates were stable, and we were targeting the Class C, Class B crowd, which is really into just the local residents. So that was stable, but it did affect the economy as well. In 2007, it's not that much. But what we're saying is that this pandemic really hit everybody. It's because the whole world stopped, literally, in terms of business, in terms of course, we were not as affected as the residential market was not as affected as, let's say, Wolfex, where we had to stop our trade fairs because mass gathering is not allowed, or restaurants. Likewise, it's like zero revenues. In residential rates, in the residential market, it's like a soft landing. We saw that we're anticipating it will go down because people, especially my market, which is the transient market, we see a lot of people going home. So they don't see the need to be near their office. And the business model of what we cater to is you want to be near your workplace so that you don't have to waste time and waste effort traveling. But that essence just vanished because of the pandemic. So I think this is the worst one for me in terms of crisis.
So what can you say about 2021 then? Will it still be a good time to somehow invest in real estate? Aren't you seeing a possibility of an awful crash that can probably, as they say, make a bubble explode, something like that?
I don't think so. The nice thing about our country is we're still very young age-wise. We have young demographics. Our average age of our citizens just 24 years old. And so we know that there is a large backlog of housing for the real end users, right? So that will never be a problem because we have people to shelter. Okay. So in terms of crash, I don't think so. In fact, all my predictions are almost wrong. I would have thought the most expensive lots will collapse, but they did not. I was expecting that there will be a surge in land sales, but people now don't look land. They look for land. They look for house and lots. So again, dynamics of the pandemic. So you have to see where the needs are, because for as long as the developers, for as long as we as in the business see where the demand is, then that's where we go. So that's why in our business, for example, in apartments, we have to pivot as well. We had one building that has only about 10% occupants, simply because it targeted a workplace that's catering to that sent everybody home. So what we did was we asked this 10% to move to another property which is filled up, and we were able to use this vacant property to become a quarantine hotel. And because of that, we're able to pivot. In fact, we're doing much better now because we're able to, again, we don't want to do it, but the government encouraged us to use the facilities because they have a big need, and it's also financially rewarding. I mean, that's not the main reason, but what we saw is there's a need. We have the capacity. There is a risk, yes, but risk of because it's quarantine, risk of exposure, risk of cash flow outlay, because when it's the government, it takes time for collection. I mean, everybody knows that. So we just have to be managing our cash flows very well. But we were able to pivot.
Over time, Randy, you've been like picking locations, no? And after this pandemic, as we move ahead, there might be a question as to like what locations are gonna be hot. I mean, you have made choices, as you said, because it's convenient. You've kept your properties within Makati and the peripheries of BGC. But how do you get to choose locations? Again, I will have to disclose that we partnered with an Alveo growth center in Ibo City. But how do you get to choose these places that you put your money on?
We focus on the challenge of putting developing an apartment for rent. If you look at long term, it's not short term. So when we want to put a cash outlay to build a property, we want to make sure that there will be earnings. And the only earnings can come in if you have rent. And rent will only come in if you have a target market. And so we look at all around all central areas in Metro Manila and see where the need is. And for me, ever since before, it has been Ayala centric. So we looked at Salcedo Village and Legazpi Village as our benchmark. So while our family focuses on those properties, on those markets, we target the gilid of that one because we cannot afford. So fringes lang kami of CBD. So right now, most of my properties are in the fringes of Ayala properties in Salcedo Village, Tugas Village, also in Circuit, and in BGC, which at the time when we did that was still not yet Ayala, it was still Metro Pacific. But when Ayala came in, we invested a lot of properties in Guadalupe, Nuevo, Pinagkaisahan, Pitogo area because we know that the new city can actually, because of the land, and so they're able to provide taller buildings, and that means more workers, and so we have to cater to that as well.
That's quite insightful, as you mentioned, like Ayala centric, and it makes it so easy because I'm sure Ayala would have done the research. Ayala would probably be so committed to developing the place. So if you're going to be part of it, you're going to be part of the ball game that happens in growth moving forward. Now, my last two questions, I'll combine it because I'll show two of your last slides. Obviously, on top of real estate, you invest in other things, and that's the reason why it keeps you, let's just say, resilient. It keeps you on the ball no matter what's happening to the economy. You have assets that are going to do well and assets that are not going to do well at any particular time. So what's your secret for doing that? And the other one would be this, like as a parting shot, what can you share to our audience, people who are thinking about, buying a unit or two, starting from the very small business that can actually end up to be as big as you?
Two tough questions. Maybe, the ideal allocation pie, as you can see in the PowerPoint presentation, is it's supposed to be 1/4 cash, 1/4 stocks, 1/4 real estate, and 1/4 business. And if you don't have a business, and then maybe bonds. All right, but these are the ideal one is to equally spread your allocations, your assets to different asset classes, so that you won't be affected too much in case a black swan or a pandemic, something like this happens. And so, in my case, even in business, I also did the same thing. I did not only rely on real estate, but we have different companies that I either started or partnered with that could help me survive whatever the crisis is, especially this pandemic. Our e-commerce business is still doing okay. Our WOFEX, our trade show business, is actually coping up. It has lost its events for now. Real in-show, on-site, face-to-face show, but we have pivoted to virtual trade fairs and webinars, but of course not as effective. We would hope that in the future we would go back to be a hybrid to make the best part of both worlds. Real estate, we have to also pivot as well because we only cater to certain aspects. But because of these allocations, different allocations, we're able to not rely only on one source of income or source of revenue. So I would suggest that everybody here listening, that you should also don't put too much asset class in just one. Sorry, put money your assets in just one asset class. It's best if you just spread it, and you will just realize it during this pandemic, the benefits of doing that. So there you go. So, and as a parting shot, I will just have to say this. First of all, you have to start moving, start acting on things that will create your own wealth building process. As I said, you have to understand first your objective. What do you want to do? Okay, in the different phase of your lives, that objectives may change or may improve, but at least you have to have an objective why you want to do this. And when you have that objective in mind, check your cash flow. Very important. Do not borrow or do not over borrow if you can't afford it, especially when pandemics like this just cuts down the predictability of your sources of revenues. And third is look for a good partner in your endeavor. In my case, not only are partners very helpful because they give me the peace of mind, but at the same time, partners in the business. For example, in my case, when I do my developments, in my mind, my partner is Ayala, because I know that I'm catering to the central business districts of Ayala. The peace of mind of having my family there to support me in whatever decisions I make is also very important. So to end my presentation, it's what Pope Francis said in his Urbi and Orbi blessing last year, that despite all these challenges, despite the pandemic, God turns everything to our good, and it's a blessing. I see so many blessings despite these challenges, especially the blessings of family, the blessings of camaraderie, of community, of daily divine protection. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Randy. No, we will get back to you. We're not done yet. We're gonna go to a Q&A portion later on. We're going to be giving the audience, obviously, the chance to ask you questions directly, to ask me questions directly, or even the both of us to have probably a check in terms of our perspectives. Do they align or not?